If you want to know where your emotional sobriety is, look at how you deal with a disagreement with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give you every bit of insight into your level of emotional maturity that you can have.
Bill Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote in 1952, "If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root some unhealthy dependence and its consequent demand." Wilson suggested that if we could identify and continually surrender these unrealistic and unrealizable demands, that we may then be able to accomplish what he imagined to be the recovery's next frontier, something he called emotional sobriety. Flash forward 70 years and join psychotherapists and best-selling authors Tom Rutledge and Dr. Allen Berger, who have taken up the mantle of exploring Bill Wilson's new frontier. Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the next step in recovery. Here we are in our podcast. I have no idea how long we've been doing this podcast, guys, but I have missed being with you for a couple of weeks, and I'm glad to be back with you. It also feels like I'm back with my support system. I'm here with Allen Berger and Patrick Newman.
Welcome back. Welcome back. You were deeply, deeply, deeply missed. Great to have you back, man. Great to have you back. I know you've been going through a lot of stuff, and you know, I'm excited later on. We're going to, look, I'm excited about this episode.
Me too.
We talk about emotional sobriety all the time. And there's so many different dimensions to emotional sobriety. And maybe one of the most important is how we experience love and how we are in love and what love means to us. And I think that there's, in one way of thinking about it, there's no greater area in terms of the impact that emotional sobriety has and on our relationships, especially with those that we dearly love and cherish. And so we're going to really explore that today, but we're going to do it in the context of this great little book you've written, Tom.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right too about the fact that it's interesting. I think that these are, when you're talking about this, there are some sweeping generalizations that I would just say, put a disclaimer on and say we all have to find ourselves in that, and everything we say here may not apply to, will not apply to every single person. But one of the things that I believe I found from my own history of being in relationships and doing well and not doing so well, and working with other couples, is that sadly, the place where our best selves breaks down is with the people who we love the most. And so often our best selves we're showing our best selves out into the world, and other people are getting that. And what happens is we get home, and we do want home to be a place where we're with our loved ones, which means we can. To me, I think of it as like, I want home to be, and when I say home, it can be a place, but it's also a relationship. It's a place where you can take off. You ideally want to be able to take off your armor and leave it on the porch and go in and just be yourself. And if we're not careful, what ends up happening is we're not being really respectful to our relationships when we do that. And it's like, it's an
interesting dynamic, isn't it? See, this Christopher Lasch called it a haven in a heartless world. I love that phrase, right?
That's what we want. Absolutely.
Right? That's what we want. Now, to achieve that, though, may be different than what a lot of people think. But I wanted to say something about the other thing, and it's totally I've totally lost it right now for a minute. You were starting. Oh, yes, about. We save our worst behavior for those people that we love the most and care the most about. The way that I heard Dr. David Snarch talk about it is that when we are anxious or stressed in a relationship, we drop to the lowest common denominator in ourselves. And then we tend to respond from the lowest common denominator if our partner drops to the lowest common denominator in themselves, right? Or another way that I heard somebody say it, drop to your lower self, right? That when we operate, or Bill would call it our hidden Mr. Hyde, right? That kind of a thing. And that's so true, man. We save our worst behavior Dr. Kempler used to say the reason we do that is because we have this idea that our close relationship, that's the one place everything should go our way. We have
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
idea, right?
It's like, yeah, absolutely. The one that is actually has the greatest depth, it has the most importance to us. It has the more options or more opportunities for complications, and that's the one that should be perfect. What it means is that's the one that's going to take the most work for most of us. It's like
a great reframing of it, man.
Yeah.
It's really where your emotional sobriety is going to be tested the most. You know, if you want to know where your emotional sobriety is, look at how you deal with a disagreement with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give you every bit of insight into your level of emotional maturity that you can have.
One of the things you have to do with that is you have to actually listen. You have to let those defenses down that get up so often in the relationship. You have to also listen to your partner, because your partner sometimes, when they're saying things that you really don't like, is speaking. They may not be saying it exactly right, because like you say, they're in their defenses too, but it's like there's information in what our partners are saying to us that this is what I've learned and how I've learned in relationship. And it's one of the top life changers in my life is to listen, not listen for how is she wrong when Dee Dee's talking to me. Listen for what is she saying to me that I can use? What is she saying to me that's probably right? Yep. And it's like, I almost wanted to do the joke, and disappointingly, she's right very much of the time, but I don't even feel that way anymore. The joke doesn't even work in my head, because I'm going like, and we had a conversation last night that was just one of those that helps me celebrate the fact that, and I could see in that, and we had a conversation about that. All of it's not just because we have this relationship and we've stuck with it, which is an important piece of it, but we've done the work. It's like we were talking about some stuff that something that would have gone off the rails, probably, late night, ineffective conversation, days of being troubled and not knowing what's going on, both of us being confused. We dealt with it, and I swear, less than 5 minutes. It's like, just because defenses were down. Dee Dee had a question about something I had said. We talked about it. We both listened to each other. We both heard each other, and we were okay. But what I want to say to the people listening is, if you want to get to that place, now maybe you have that place naturally. I don't. I never did. I think the clinical term for it is a defensive motherfucker. So it's like my defenses will have really rapid reflexes. And so it's taken a lot of work for me to learn how to keep those defenses down, for sure.
No, I was going to do a Scaramouche on you. You know what a Scaramouche is?
What?
Scaramouche was the student of Cyrano de Bergerac, the great
okay,
dancer, right, in France, right?
Yes,
and he taught him everything he knew, and so they were in a fight one time. And Scaramouche bested Cyrano de Bergerac. And from that point on, whenever a teacher teaches you something that you use against a teacher to best them, it's called Scaramouche them.
I love it. Oh, I love
it. So you taught me a long time ago is that the brain doesn't process a negative, right? So if you say, don't think of a pink elephant, right, what are you going to think of?
Right.
A pink elephant. And you say, you can't tell someone, just stop thinking of that pink elephant, because it won't work, right? So when we say lower your defenses, what your brain hears is defenses, right?
Good point.
So,
yeah.
Right. So what we've been learning, it's not about lowering your defenses. It's about increasing your humility.
Well, which is defining what, yeah, you're right. You use the same language, because I don't know how to, I tried to take negative out of my language when I was teaching about the negative command, but it's like, so what you have to do is define lowering defenses, and you define it by what is, not what is not. And humility is humility and curiosity. Those two things are key.
Humility and curiosity. Meet your partner's criticism or feedback with humility and curiosity, right? You do that, you won't be defensive.
Right.
There's no room for it.
Well, and what I want people to know is what I remember about doing that work through the years with help of therapists. I mean, I'm not, we had a lot of wonderful therapists helped, and a couple in particular. One in particular, Mary Elizabeth Hickman is the person that did a lot of work with Dee Dee and I, that I quote her very often because she was so helpful with that. And it's what I want people to know is, first of all, if you need help, you need help, and so please get it. And it can come in various forms, but it needs to be somebody who's not either one of you in terms of who's in the relationship. What I want you to know is you won't know that you won't feel like you're doing good when you're doing good. It's just like any other part of recovery. As a matter of fact, I was looking through my book that you were talking about. What love is I want to talk to you guys about my recent reaction to my own book in a minute. It was talking about getting outside your comfort zone, and the paraphrase of it was, here's how you know how you're outside your comfort zone. You're going to feel really uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's how you know. And it's like, that's not a bad place to be when you're in this. And so the idea is, where your reflex is to be defensive. I mean, what you just said, when you counter that with humility and curiosity, I mean, those are two things that really, I mean, that's a beautiful definition of lowering defenses. Now that I think about it, it's like just all by itself. We could probably do more with it if we batted it around, Alan. But the idea is that's true intimacy, into me see. That's right. Really, and when you. And I think you can attest to this as well, is the idea when you get to a place where you have that, you end up building more trust in your relationship. It really doesn't, it's not such a discomforting thing. It's not out of your comfort zone anymore. But at first, understand that knowing you're outside your comfort zone is actually not a bad sign, because that's where the defensive parts of our mind, the committee members, they're going to say, run, get the hell out of there, shut down, fight back, whatever. It's like, no, knowing that being outside your comfort zone is a sign that you're on the right track. Just like we tell people when they first get sober, if they get sober from alcohol, for instance, it's like they say, I'm not drinking, I'm going to these meetings, but I feel horrible. And we say, right, exactly. That's what you're going to do. How long am I going to feel that way? We don't know how long. We know how, though, that you'll get better. And that is through consistent, constant repetition.
That's right. Notice, add curiosity and humility, man. I mean, it's such a important formula in terms of, emotional sobriety, right? We've been talking about. Bill defined it that way. Yep. He says, what is emotional sobriety? He goes, real maturity and balance, which is to say humility in relationship with ourselves. He says with fellows. And then he said with God. I also add in there with life, right? It's that thing too. It's in terms of the experience we have in life. And this is so critical. I mean, it's the one thing that if we work on increasing our humility, and our humility is just that we have gaps in knowledge. We don't know everything. And I've come to that point where what I used to defend wasn't worth defending. I mean, it was a part of me that I really needed to start to let go of, not to try to bolster and reinforce, right? And make more of. And see, that's the part that I didn't understand for so long. I clung to this idea of who I was supposed to be or who I should be. And like you said, man, letting go of it. While there was some relief, it was also very uncomfortable.
Right. It gets more comfortable with time. But see, just as you say that, when you say clung to it, I'm listening. You can hear it in your voice. If you're just listening to the audio of this, you can hear that. But I'm looking at you, and you're tense. Your shoulders come in. You're well, you just added that look in your eye. That's pretty cool. But your fist grip, and it's like, that's what it is. And
right. No, and that's also the Italian in me, right?
Whatever nationality or what variety of that.
You're saying don't play cards, Alan, because
that's good. That's good. It's like, but I did find this one in the What Love book is. It's sometimes I try to state the obvious.
By the way, I wanted to say to everybody, I read that book. You sent it to me right after you wrote it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, I couldn't put it down. every page had another gem in it, and I
I
couldn't
know.
wait to turn the page to the next gem.
Thank you.
It's your nutshell wisdom at its best.
Well, let me read this one piece,
Why
and
don't you
then
read a few of them to
if
us?
it's okay, I will because I want to. I actually this may be a bit of a. I'm not sure where this is. This is one of those places where I think we've all three had this with our podcast, where it's like I'm having an experience in the moment. I'm having an experience even this morning, getting ready for the podcast, in which I'm got a lot of energy, and I wanted to talk. I wanted to tell you guys about it. There's a little section called double check. And it says at the end, it says, sometimes when we are absolutely certain about something, we are wrong. Absolutely certain. And we need to remember that just because I'm absolutely certain does not make me right. But here's what I want to say. And this, one of the reasons I want to say this, Alan, is because this is also, to me, it's a testament to what I have of my growth since we've been working on this stuff. This is I can get emotional talking about this. It's like I am forever grateful for you in my life. And that has extended, by the way, and that's not just, I'm not just doing a polite including you here, Patrick, but that extends to you, because you've become a part of this unit that is the three of us. That is really, I think we all felt it when we got to be together. And when we came to see you, Alan, it's like, but I'm so grateful for you. And it's like, and what I'm talking about here is my relationship with myself. It's like, one of the most beneficial things about being somebody who is just meaner than a snake to myself most of my life is, and has such a ruthless, condemning should monster, is that I've always been able to connect with people and help people. You say, like, how can, non-alcoholics can help out alcoholics, but we have a special kind of advantage, in having been there. And so I've been able to really connect and help people who are really mean to themselves because I've been there. And unlike alcoholism, it's like the actual drinking of alcohol. Sobriety is a much more gray area thing, because that should monster, I don't have to pick up a drink to buy into a negative message from my should monster, and I don't have to, I don't have to be, I'm not in relapse necessarily if I am leaning into some negative thinking about myself. I'm just off balance. But one of the things that, and I'll try to say this in as concise way as I can. And I went through this with my first book, Simple Truth, while we were working through the 12 steps on the Thursday night meeting, because I began to recognize so many of the things we were talking about as being in that book. And I would go back and look at it. And I would literally have the book in front of me when we were doing our Thursday night meeting and marking into it and saying, that stuff was there. And it's one of those deals where I don't know how to describe it. We could do a whole, we're all three writers. We might want to do a podcast just on what it's like to write, because the truth is, I didn't, at least at this level, I didn't know the shit that I wrote. I didn't really understand a lot of the stuff I wrote in Simple Truth when I wrote it, but I go, man, that's still really good. But more to this book, it's more recently, because of some of the nice things you've said about it, I've gone back to it. I've looked at it, and it's like, and so this morning I was reading it. I just decided to read it this morning. And I don't tend to read what I write once I'm done with it. You and I've talked about that, Alan. One of the mistakes that we make sometimes is we stop using some of the concepts that we write about because we've already that's been there, done that. We're and the good part about that is we're looking for new stuff. But the other thing is that what I've discovered is some of my best stuff, it gets lost because I don't return to it. And I have come to understand through the emotional sobriety process is a sort of a subdued level of self-incrimination. It's like, it's not giving myself credit. It's like, it's almost like I told somebody not long ago, it's almost like with the books that I have that are out there that people like and they read and stuff like that. I almost kind of had a feeling of like, wow, I got away with that. That passes for a book. That's good. But I'm reading this morning, and it's like, I love it. It's like I'm far enough away from having written this thing, and I'm sitting there, and that's what I want to say. I don't want to sound like I'm just an egotistical maniac, because, and I think you guys know that. I don't think you think I am, but it's like I was exactly what you just said. I started reading it and realizing that this little book that has these little entries into it, one leads to the other, what builds on itself, it goes back, it reviews, it does all of these things. It really is the sort of the essence of self-help about relationship, and it's like, and it's done very, very concisely, and to where I was just really loving this book. And it's like, I mean, it's weird, because what I want to do is I want to thank you for that, because I think that I actually am having an experience, and I've always been the first one to say, don't talk to me about self-love. I can deal with self-respect, but self-love's hard. But I realized I was feeling love for the guy who wrote this book, because I was aware that, because with every one of these things, I can take you, if we went through each one by one, I could tell you stories about every single of those little baby pages of where I was once fucking these things up. And it's like, and I was realizing how much progress is involved in all of this, and how, and really valuing myself as a person, as a recovering person, realizing how much work I've done. And one of the things that's very important to me in my life, because I never meant to be a therapist, I always intended to just be a writer, is I'm loving myself as a writer. It's like, and I'm very aware that I'm saying that in a setting right now where I don't think I would have any trouble saying that to you guys at any time, but I'm aware of that. I'm saying that to where other people will hear this as well. And it's a little bit outside my comfort zone now that we're thinking about it. It's like that, talking about that. It's like, because I can feel that in my chest, that I'm going, I don't know how that comes off, how that sounds. I hear the little voices going on, but
I'm curious.
It's a great feeling about valuing it. Yes.
Yeah. No. Was there a passage in particular that when you picked it up after not looking at it for a while, where you felt you had grown into a observation that you made when you first wrote it in a way that like was somehow different, or kind of like, it became more true than it had initially?
The coolest, I have an immediate response to that, Patrick, and I love that this is my response. No, all of it. It's like, I mean, because it's how it's put together. It's what it's in there. There are a lot of things in here that I like really specifically.
Here's some specifics.
Go ahead.
Because people don't have a flavor for it yet. They
Okay.
But they're not getting a sense of what's really in there. So can you read a few things that stand out to you?
Okay. Let's see. Now I'm feeling insecure. Okay, so
all of a sudden it changes right now.
Well, because I'm going,
that was ephemeral. That was short-lived. No,
yeah. Oh well, that was nice while it lasted. Well, one of the things I can say is I can immediately say insecurity is not self-hatred. It's like, because it used to be there was not much distinction. It was a slippery slope. It's like, no, I'm overthinking it at this point where I'm going. Oh, I got to get the right ones that'll give everybody the feel for the.
Danny, just turn to a page. Just
okay.
We'll simplify.
Okay.
Stop doing what you're doing and turn to a page and read it.
Okay. Early page 17. The most important thing says discovery is meaningless without action. I said this short little entry says I can take guitar lessons from Eric Clapton, but if I don't practice between lessons, I will not play the guitar. I can show up faithfully for my lessons. I can pay close attention, and I will be able to genuinely claim that I know a lot about playing the guitar. But without practice, what I know will not change is the fact that I cannot play. So you can understand everything there is to understand in this little book, and it will not make the slightest difference in how you love. Please read what follows with the intention of creating a daily practice of what you discover to be useful here. Practice is the only way to change, and commitment to perpetual practice is the only way to mastery.
Man, just for something pulled at random, that's pretty fucking real. I feel that, deeply.
And that's right. And look, that's the theme on the Thursday nights now when we've been talking about emotional sobriety and self-esteem. we're going into Brandon's work, and he says the practice of living consciously, the practice of, self-assertive.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I often don't realize is the things that I talk about nowadays. I look back at the old stuff that I've written in earlier books and realize, oh wow, I was thinking that was something I was coming to more recently, but I've really been saying that all along. And part of that, and this is, I could say this to you guys as writers. Tell me if your experience is the same. It's like part of that is the guy that was talking to you right now is not the guy who wrote the book.
That's right.
It's like it's a different aspect of my personality. It's even, and if we can get into what we believe about in terms of our connection to the greater universe, I would even say at times there's such a channeling experience with writing these books that I would say I no longer am surprised when I write something that's smarter than I am.
Hey, can I ask a question about the writing of the book?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you at in your life when you wrote it? What were like the conditions that produced this like tome of like?
I had been working with enough women who were frustrated as hell with our gender in relationship that I had jokingly begun to say I was going to write a book called Clues for the Clueless. And it was pretty much implied it was for men. It's like sad to say, but so I had made notes about that thing. Well, maybe I could really do that. And then this is one of the things that is just usual for me in my spontaneous life is I had people came to me at one point and said they were putting together a Valentine's gift basket that they were pitching to Walmart to sell, and that they had a guy who was writing a little gift book for it about love, and that he had dropped out. Could I write a book about that? And so I wrote the first draft that day. I wrote the first draft of this book. This book took a long time because I've spent a lot of years with it before I wrote it down. But I wrote the first draft of it in 2 hours. It was because I was writing it as a single entry thing on each page. So I just channeled that out and put that in. And the essence of that is still there. It's been worked on an awful lot, but it's so that's what got it going. Was it just was an immediate thing, an opportunity. By the way, I didn't get into Walmart. that didn't work out. But it's like that's how it happened. So it's like it wasn't anything I actually thought a lot about before I did it. It's more that once I had it, I liked the essence of it, and I kept coming back to it over the years and revising it until it got to this particular form. And and then Andrew. I'm forgetting Andrew's last name. Andrew, your partner. Andrew Martin had turned when once my literary agent had retired and I didn't have an agent anymore. He told me about publishing through Amazon, and so I want to find out what that's like. And I picked up this manuscript, started working with it, and that's what I did. So,
well, writing itself, the act of writing, it's a practice. You don't get shit done thinking about what you're going to write. You got to write to decide what's going to be written. And I didn't write for a long time before I got physically sober. And my process has been growing and evolving ever since I've kind of started regrowing my brain. And the more that I frustrate that impulse to kind of like trying to imagine the perfect paragraph and or the wisdom that I'll theoretically be able to create on the page once I finally sit down and do it. And the more I just sit down and kind of work it all out,
That's it. Yeah. I'm going through that right now with working on the book that because I keep working on the one day at a time book that you and I are working on, and it's Alan, and I'm relearning that lesson. Of course, it's always about relearning, and it's like I'm relearning the lesson that I'll have these little notes in all margins of everything I'm reading about. Oh, this would be a good one for that. I can do that. But it's like, and I think this is what you're talking about too, Patrick, is the only way that it's going to get written, of course, is if I sit down and write it. But almost always, not necessarily always, but almost always, what I start writing is not what I end up with. It's not the same. It's like very often, you know, like our little formula is thought for the day and then a reflection on it. Very often I write the thought for the day, write the reflection, and have to change the thought for the day because I didn't do that. It's like I put something else in there, and it's like, and so that's one of the great lessons to this. And I think we could actually even liken this and connect this to the whole getting outside of our comfort zone, being willing to just be in the process, whether that be have a, you know, how can we translate that to having a conversation with somebody that where you haven't figured out everything you're going to say yet, but that you're going to be there. But it's like, yeah, I just need to write that first sentence or those first words and see what happens.
I have a question about, and this is bringing Allen's book and what something that jumped out at me when he was talking about love and emotional sobriety is if you don't have an emotional center of gravity, if you're still very dependent on people, places, and things to give you validation and to you see people and you see your loved ones as tools rather than actually seeing them for them. And I just was wondering if that intersected a bit with what love is in terms of how can we love better? How can we be more present? That exists at the crux of emotional sobriety in many ways.
Oh, absolutely. And I always love that I love what you do with the metaphor of balance, Alan. It's like God is everything.
No, you know, the model that I've often used for mature love is really was suggested by this brilliant philosopher, Martin Buber.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about the I to thou relationship. And he contrasted it, Patrick, with what you were talking about was the I to it relationship. See, when I relate to you as an object, as an it, then I don't see you. I see what you can or cannot do for me. See, I'm no longer experiencing you as a subject in my inner life. I'm experiencing you as an object that I'm wondering if you're going to meet my needs and what I have to do to manipulate you to get you there, right? That kind of a thing. So as Tom was saying before, that doesn't sound very intimate, does it? Because it's not. It's really not intimate. It's not really having an
it's not even relational. It's like it's
not even relational. That's a good way to say it, man. It totally takes the relationship out of the relationship.
Right. Well, okay. I'm gonna and I'll try to dial it back after this, but I'm gonna take it. You guys have encouraged me. I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna read you two little sections that go right, one behind the other at the first of the book. That is, to me, is the essence of the fact that what I end up talking to people about in relationship therapy a lot of times is we're so often without meaning to, without thinking about it, but we're thinking about how we are being loved rather than how we are loving.
That's the it component, right?
Yeah. And so this is, there's two little short paragraphs. One's called the language of love and the other one's called delivering. And the language of love goes like this. It says, I love you so much. I love you so very much. You mean everything to me. I would cut off my right arm for you. You are the sun and the moon and the stars, and on and on. Such is the language of love, the magnificent language of romance. Now, delivery. It is a beautiful language, no doubt. It is a beneficial language, or is it? Well, that depends on who is speaking the language of love. Specifically, it depends on whether or not the person doing the talking will stand behind his or her words. It's one thing to promise your right arm and quite another to deliver. It's my favorite story about this book is when I gave the manuscript to the people with the Walmart thing. That's the one sentence they said they wanted to take out because it seemed violent. You know, it's
wow.
And I said, I said, it's my favorite sentence in the whole book. It's like it's one thing to promise your right arm and quite another to actually deliver. It's like, would you actually give your right arm? That's to me just a statement of no. This is in God, if we can get this, and this is what I've gotten in all the work I've done is if I want to focus on my relationship, then I need to focus on how I am loving Dee Dee, not how I think she's doing loving me. It's not that. It's like, you know, there's lots that goes with that. People go, oh, this is, you know, you should, but no, I'll be aware of all that and I can take care of myself. But it's like, that's what, but it turns out that the whole thing that they taught us from when we were kids, it's better to give than to receive.
I have the most perfect anecdote to share in regards
Uh-huh.
to that. I was at a stand-up show last night, and the comedian was talking about his friendship with Bob Saget, who recently passed.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing Bob Saget used to do, he had a beautiful, kind of like very connected relationship with his wife. And he said that every day he would do something for a little thing, and he wouldn't always tell her he was doing it, but he would kind of seed these positive deeds throughout their relationship. So then when he would go on the road to do his stand-up, one by one, she would realize all these things that he was doing that were no longer being done, or she would feel the absence.
Missing it. Yeah.
And it would just serve to bring them even closer together when they were separate. And
sweet. I love that.
but always kind of in an extroverted, like in a you before me kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And as a result,
And it's not that's the other thing we have to get to with this stuff in terms of being mature and emotionally sober. We're not talking about sacrificial giving. We're talking about giving because because it feels good.
Well, that's a very important thing to talk about, because for so long, love has been fused with sacrifice in our culture. When you read that, that's what immediately came to mind, is that we had this whole idea, I give myself up to love you. And that's not loving another person. That's abandoning yourself, that's fusing yourself, that there's a lot of other ways to describe that, but we need to poison that well. See, a lot of these ideas, and that's the important thing, is our culture has a lot of misconceptions about what love truly is. We fused love with dependency. We fused love with sacrifice. We fused love with selflessness. I mean, there's all of these things that have happened in our culture that has sent us on the wrong direction, so that we end up, I think Virginia Satir said it so well. She goes that we put all this stuff on love that love can never fulfill. If you love me, you won't want to do anything without me. If you love me, you'll give me what I want. If you love me, you'll know what I want even before I ask you. I mean, these are nonsense ideas that I fully embraced at one point. I romanticized those things. I was waiting for that woman to come along that I could have that experience with, and it never happened. And the reason it never happened is because it's all nonsense. I mean,
right. The one person is going to come that's going to make up for everything else in your life, because that's the missing pieces are, I mean, basically, if that worked, there wouldn't be such thing as psychotherapists.
We'd be out of a job.
Yeah, but we'd be in a happy relationship, hopefully.
Probably. we wouldn't worry about it. We'd just be learning how to play guitar with Eric Clapton.
That's right.
I guess we got to start wrapping this up. I mean, this has been great, man. I mean, it is a wonderful. Now, there was a second page you were going to read on that.
Okay. Time is a gift. When someone says that there is not enough time, do not believe it. Time is limited, but there is enough if we use it consciously and wisely. Time's limitation is what makes it a priority. Time's limitation is what makes it such a special gift. Giving the gift of time, honoring the value of time, making time for each other, that's what love is.
Thanks for sharing it with us.
And we're going to put the info about where you can get the book in the show notes.
All right, peace.
Change your life, change your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.